Hello, hello, hello. This is Adelai Brown, your heart coach, and I want to welcome you to Heal With Me. Heal With Me is our weekly live support group where we come together from all over the world, all over the globe, whether we're watching live or watching the replay, and we help each other work towards authentic transformation. We are working on confronting our fears. We are getting unstuck and focus on living the unstoppable life. I am so thankful to be here with you. I am so thankful to share this space with you. I am honored that you would take the time to be here with me, to spend this time to get to know one another and get to grow and learn and heal together. So I'm really excited about tonight. Tonight we are talking about, the topic is what's delaying your transformation. What is delaying your transformation? So as we get started, I just want you to think a little bit about your life, where you are, the areas that you may feel stuck, the areas that you may feel like you should be doing more, or not even so much you should be doing more. Maybe there are areas in your life where you know that God is calling you to something. You know that you're being commissioned to something greater than what you're doing right now. So I just want you to think about that as we go into um, tonight's call. Now, as we begin, just to let you know, I am Adelai Brown, your heart coach, and I work with professional women to heal their hearts, embrace the truth, and authentically transform their lives. It involves working on the personal life and also working on business, because I truly believe that God has called all of us to a work, whether it is your own business or whether it is to help someone else grow theirs. Whatever it is, I believe that God has called each and every one of us to a work. And I just want to encourage you, wherever you are in your life, to know that if you feel lost, if you feel stuck, if you feel like you've been behind, tonight's call is really going to help you. Well, tonight's session is really going to help you, because it's going to help you see your life from a different perspective, right? So, what's delaying your transformation? One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, when we answered the question of what's delaying your transformation or what's delaying my transformation, it is it has a lot to deal with your identity. So how you identify, who you believe you are, what you believe that you're capable of is completely in relation to what you've been exposed to, your life experiences. Back to what I've been talking about, your beliefs inform your behavior, and your behaviors inform your outcome. And so tonight I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your identity, because a lot of times we think that, I can't transform my life, or I can't change because I don't have the right amount of money, or I don't have the right amount of impact or influence. I don't have the right people in my corner. I don't have people supporting me. I don't have people there for me. I'm not strong enough. I'm not big enough. My family isn't big enough. I don't know enough people. You don't know what I've been through. If you knew what I've been through, all the list goes on and on. And one of the things that I think that we have to begin to address is the fact that what you've been through is not who you are, but your experiences do form how you see yourself. So I want to talk to you tonight about identity. Identity is defined as the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. The fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Characteristics determining who or what a person or thing is. Um, a close similarity or affinity, right? Those are all the definitions of identity. And so tonight, I want you to think about, who do you identify as? Do you identify as more than a conqueror? Or do you feel like everything that's going to go wrong is going to happen to you? Do you identify as being, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me? Or is one little thing that's said by somebody else could just send you over the edge and you just give up on everything that you have going in your life? Who do you identify as? What do you identify as? Do you identify as a success or a failure? Do you identify as blessed or cursed? I want you to think about that, because a lot of times we think, we put the effort in, right? We put the hard work in, right? We see ourselves in a situation where it's like, I'm doing everything I could do. I'm working as hard as I can. I'm trying my best. I've taken the classes. I have done all of the things, whatever the things are. I've done all of the things, but I'm still not living the life I want to live. I'm still not happy when I wake up in the morning. I'm still not the person that I want to be. But the thing that I need us to get tonight, a lot of times we're waiting for a situation to change before we'll believe. But I need you to understand that you have to believe, and then things will change. The Bible tells us to speak the things as not as if they were. It tells us to walk by faith and not by sight. Because when you do these things, when you speak to things that are not as if they were. So let's think about that a little bit. So you might have a situation that's going on in your life, and it looks like, the facts are, things aren't going good. Things aren't working out for you. They're not going the way that maybe you wanted it to go, maybe you anticipated going. But you have to speak to it, the situation, the circumstance, whatever it is that's going on. You have to speak to it in a way that you want to see it come out. Like, you want to speak to it in a way that you want to see the outcome. But if you are stuck in this fact of, I am what I've been through, I am what those people said I am the outcome of some of the things that I've went through in my life, so I am a failure, I'm not enough, I am a bastard, I am neglected, I am abandoned, whatever these things are. If you believe that, then when you find yourself in a difficult situation that can bring about the outcome of this can bring about transformation, you go back to the old identity of being less than, of lacking, of not fulfilling your purpose. But when you speak to things that are not as if they were, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is that you're going through. You are focused on that circumstance, and you know it's going to work out for you, because you know what God has promised for you. You know what God has promised you. You know what God has said to you. So you can look at this situation that's not working out, and you can say, you know what? This is going to work out for me. This is going to work out for my good. But if your identity is rooted in being a victim and not having enough, and always falling short, and never being able to achieve how to the level, to the standard that you feel you need to achieve, then guess what? You're never going to get there. Another thing we have to address when we think about identity, so we think about our identity and relating to the circumstances that we've been through, but we also have to address our upbringing, the places and the spaces that we found ourselves that have contributed to our personality and who we think we are. The fact of being who or what a person or thing is. My identity has changed the closer I get to Christ. My identity has changed the more I walk by faith and not by sight. So I'm seeing transformation in my life more and more and more. I'm seeing change. I'm seeing breakthrough. I'm seeing all these amazing things happen more and more and more, because my identity is shifting. But my identity is shifting because I'm being intentional about confronting the things that conflict with this identity that I'm adapting, and I'm willing to let go of those conflicts. For example, when I was growing up, I was always under the impression that, children should be seen and not heard. A child should never speak back. A child should never, um, have anything. A child should never question a parent. Whatever a parent says, that's whatever should be happening, whatever should be going on, whatever, whatever, whatever. Now, that was an identity. That was a belief. That, to me, that was a part of, if I was going to be a good mother, I had to make sure that my children understood that and that I enforced that, right? Because I felt that the good mothers that I knew, the good mothers that I saw, those mothers did that. So I felt like those were things that I needed to do. So I was identifying like those mothers, and therefore I felt like I needed to do what those mothers did. I looked up to them. I felt like and when I say those mothers, I'm talking about my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, my friend's mom, just different women in my life who I felt had a big impact and made a big, um, they really made a big impact in my life. And I was impressed, I guess, by some of their children and just some of the things they were able to do as mothers. And therefore, I felt like if I'm going to be a good mother, if I'm going to identify as a good mother, then these are the things that a good mother should do. A part of that was children shouldn't talk back and things like that. But I knew how I felt growing up, not having times where I didn't have a say so and I couldn't say things back. And I felt like if I did say something back, then I would get in trouble or experience some type of backlash, some type of upset, just some type of something that would really go against me. It wouldn't be worth the the backlash of me being honest with my mother wouldn't necessarily be worth um me being truthful, right? That's what I felt. So when I became a parent and started to try to implement this way of being a parent, or you gonna do what I say and don't ask me any questions, do as I do, do as I say, not as I do, and this whole old way of being that I identified with, that I grew up around, that was not working for me. That was actually causing me and my children to be in a space where we were not able to really connect. I was not, we talk about what's delaying your transformation. The transformation for me was I didn't have that intimacy with my mother because I didn't feel emotionally safe. But if I wanted to identify and be like the mothers that I thought I needed to be like, then that was a part of it. So tonight, what we're talking about is what's delaying your transformation is you're going to have to adopt a new identity. And you're going to have to embrace the difficulty and the pain that comes with that particular part of the transformational process. There's a restoration and a revitalization that has to take place. So our life experiences cause us to think and believe certain things about ourselves and the people in the world around us. But then the people that raised us, the people we grew up with, the people that were in our lives, those people really impacted how we see the world. So if your mother said, oh, never go to somebody's house empty handed, that might be the way she was raised. But you might find yourself in a desperate, dire situation where you really need someone and you cut yourself off from your breakthrough and your blessing because you don't have anything to bring physically, not knowing that your presence is a blessing. But if I identify with the way that they did things and the way that they saw things, so your transformation is not just about you, it's about going against the cultural norms that were in your culture. Like I was talking with my friend the other day about Negative cultural influences, like the people around you, the people you identify with, whatever your culture is in your family, whatever your culture is in your workplace, whatever your culture is with your friends. Understand that you are the same person in all of those places, even if you choose to act differently. But the more you choose to lock into the identity that works, that God has called you to, that works for you, then you can see authentic transformation. See, a lot of us are transforming. We are changing, we are doing different things. Like, look, I dyed my hair, I changed the color of my hair. Yes, a lot of us people are having surgery, cosmetic surgery, to make their face look different, to make their body look different. People are getting degrees and things like that to transform themselves intellectually. But what are you doing to your heart, and what are you doing to your soul? You have to identify differently if you're going to transform. Authentic transformation. Like not doing what's trending, not doing what your cousin did, and y'all been in competition your whole life, so you feel like you need to do what she did, or your sister. Maybe you've been in competition with her your whole life, or you feel like your brother is your mother's favorite child anyway, so you're just trying to do better to prove something to them. Not that type of transformation. I'm talking about the transformation that comes from crying at night or early in the morning because God has spoken to you in such a real clear way that you know you have to do something different, that you know you have to draw something from you that's been sitting on the inside of you for a very long time, and you have not brought it out because you are identifying some other way, and that identity does not complement nor does it support what God is calling you to, and you're in a conflict. You're stuck. I'm telling you, to get unstuck, you have to be willing to take on a new identity. You have to be willing to take on a new thought process, a new way of being. Um, you know, you cannot stay stuck where you were. You cannot. Now, I want you to think about your life. Where in your life have you been identifying in a way that is not working for you? Oh, I'm broke. I don't have enough money for that. Oh, I'm not strong enough to do that. Oh, I can't take that. I can't handle that. You a bigger person than me. You a better person than me. I'm not disciplined enough to get my health right. I can't exercise every day. Changing your identity is not just about, a lot of people like to think that this is about you. Usually when I hear this, I hear this when you think about people coming of age or getting older, or when you think about people in their sexual preference, or sexual, when we're dealing with that, and you thinking about identity. But no, I'm talking about, how do you identify in your spirit? Do you know Jesus? Have you taken the time to get to know him? Like, maybe you've accepted Jesus as your personal savior. Maybe not. But if you have you taken the time to get to know him and understand what that means, that relationship? I've been going through some changes, celebrating 8 years of being the heart coach and launching the Heartcubator, and that's going well. Like, a lot of the individuals in the Heartcubator are really seeing changes in their life from the inside out, like being able to confront and deal with things that have been like hovering over them for years. But they have to identify a different way. They have to know that they're worth that investment. They have to know that they're worth investing that time, their resources, whatever is required to get to the next level in their lives. But see, when you don't know who you are, when your identity is confused, then you don't know what's required. You don't understand how much of an investment you are. You don't understand how much of a necessity that you are. So who do you think you are? And I want you to take some time. Maybe now you have a notebook or a journal with you. And if you don't, maybe after we get off here with me, I really want you to sit and think about, ask yourself the question, who do I think I am? And answer it. And really take the time to dig deep. Because what I have found, especially like being a heart coach for 8 years, one thing I have found is that when it's just like being a realtor with dealing with houses, and this is so real. um, you will have a situation going on in one part of the house, and that situation is going on, but you think the issue is there. But when you get somebody in to come and check it out, you find out the cause of the issue. It might be a leak that's presented itself in in the bathroom, but the cause of the leak is actually in the kitchen, or the cause of the leak is actually in the living room, but the leak is presenting itself in the bathroom. And see, a lot of times what we do is we see it in the bathroom and we just try to deal with this situation that's localized right here, but don't really take the time to bring in the expert or dig a little deeper, take the time to troubleshoot and say, hey, let me make sure I'm really fixing this problem and I'm not just patching it up where it's going to cause me more problems down the line. This is what's delaying your transformation. You're identifying with something here. Oh, I went through this when I was younger. And let me bring this up. You're identifying with something here, but don't realize the cause of it is something someplace else. And you also don't realize that you really can't afford to not deal with that, to not confront it. Yes, it could be frustrating. Yes, it could be exhausting, but it is absolutely necessary. One thing I have found is anytime that you want to go to a higher level in life and anytime you want to do something different, you are going to be faced with some type of opposition. I had a conversation today with somebody that I love dearly, and me and this person bump heads every time for the same situation, and it happens consistently every time. And today, you know, I made the comment and I said, you know what, we go through this all the time. And I feel like we can't stop just because it gets difficult. We can't stop talking about it just because it gets difficult. We can't just leave it here and say, oh, I'll deal with that later. No, because if that's the case, we're never going to get over this hump. We're never going to get to the other side of what this can look like when we do work through this difficult spot. But if we keep identifying that, oh, I'm difficult or she's difficult or whatever the case may be, if I keep identifying that you are this and I am that, then we're going to keep going through the same cycle. So I made up in my mind today. I said, hey, I don't want to continue this on. Let's deal with this now. Was it the easiest thing to do? No. Did it take longer than I may have wanted it to take? Yes, but it was necessary. Like, I genuinely feel better. And I think she does as well. But I believe that when you have things that are underlying and been there for so long, so many of us, especially those that have been raised like in the Southern Black culture, not just Black culture, but Southern culture with this false sense of Southern hospitality, when we think that being polite trumps telling the truth. So we just go along and we continue to dishonor how we feel and how we're experiencing our lives, and then feel like we're being disregarded or disrespected, or people aren't respecting us, or we're not adding up, whatever the case may be, all because we're afraid to confront the elephants in the room. We're afraid to pull back the layers of the issues that are hurting us. We are afraid to pull back the layers of who we believe that we are. When I believed that, now I would have never told you that I didn't think I was good enough. I would have never told you that I didn't think I was worthy of love and affection. I would have never told you that I didn't feel worthy of being married, or really didn't think that God would ever really bless me. I always thought if I would jinx anything good coming in my life because I was just inherently bad. Like those were things that I truly and like authentically believed about myself as I worked towards the goals I was working through. When I was working towards being a nurse, and then working towards being a licensed therapist, and then working towards being a lawyer at one point in my life. And I don't believe that anything is wrong with any of those careers. I actually know for a fact that we need those things. But I know that once my identity started to shift, my career path started to shift. The the things I wanted to do when I spent my time, um, the passions that I had started to come forth. I started to meet different types of people, started to get exposed to different types of things. But it came on the backside of me starting to identify as being more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He who the Son sets free is free indeed. When my mother and my father forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. These are things that I learned, and I realized that, oh, I believed I was abandoned and left out, and not loved like that. But this is what God said about me. I believed that I couldn't do it, but this is what he said: I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But it wasn't until I really started to really be intentional about embracing this new identity. And what that means is you're going to have to let go of all those old things you think you are, the old people, a lot of the situations that you identify with and connected with. You're going to have to shift a lot of that. Your crowd is going to have to change because you're going to change. This is what's delaying your transformation. What are you afraid to let go of? And who are you afraid to let go of? Let's see, we got a comment. Remember, your comments and questions are welcome. Check out the chat. Send us message on YouTube and Zoom. I would love to hear from you. Let's see, from our Zoom, it says, my parents and grandparents on my father's side shaped my identity growing up. They prepared me for the world I would have to face in life as we were growing up. Now that I'm older, I'm grateful for my grandparents introducing Christ in my life as a young child. I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for sharing, Ramona. I would say the same thing. I feel like for me, my grandparents really shaped my identity, and my grandfather died when I was 8. I was always close with my grandmother, but I got even close with her when he passed away because I really was like his pet. I was like my grandfather's pet. And my grandmother had such a fierce love for Christ, and she was very committed to her church, to her family, to her community. It always amazed me at how men and women and young adults would respond to my grandmother when she came around. She wasn't like a loud person. She wasn't the type of person that you would necessarily know that she entered the room because you would hear her, but you could feel her spirit. And she exposed me to Christ. She exposed me to God. She taught me that tithing was important, and reading my Bible was important, and going to church, and not just church, having fellowship was important, and family. And not just her, but if I had to single in, I would say she was like the central focus of teaching me that. And one of the things that I had to learn as I got older, when my grandmother died, I was 26 years old. And I remember um, I had already started building a relationship with Christ and going to Bible study and learning about praying and fasting and just a lot of things that I didn't know that much about. I heard about it, but I didn't know that much about it. And I had started doing a lot of those things. But when she passed away, I felt like, see, my identity was so wrapped up in her love for me. So I dreaded the day that my grandmother would die because I felt like I wouldn't want to keep living. Because in my mind, nobody was going to ever love me the way she did because I felt like I felt unconditional love from her. Like I couldn't say anything to get her upset, to frustrate her, to irritate her. Even if she got a little irritated, it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle in my mind, right? But what I realized when she died, and this was a transformational time for me, and a lot of things shifted for me at that season of my life, was that I knew God through her. And when she died, I realized that I could no longer identify God as like my grandmother's God. She was still his God, but I needed to get to know him for myself. I needed to get to know Christ for myself. I needed to put myself in a situation where I was not I needed to put myself in a situation where I was not depending upon my grandmother, because she was no longer here. And even before she passed away, she had dementia. So for a couple years before she passed away, she wasn't that, she still was very influential and forceful in my life, but it wasn't as verbal. It wasn't as in my face. I had to be very intentional about connecting with her and being with her. And I'm thankful for that time. We prayed, we worship. I feel like we connected. I feel like Elijah did Elisha. I almost feel like she passed her spirit over to me during that time. Wow, I never thought about it like that. But I had to be my own woman. I had to get my identity set outside of my grandmother, outside of my mother, outside of my father. I had to get who Adelai was outside of the stories. Or I was a teen mom and I was abandoned and I was left behind, and you don't know what I went through, and you don't know all the things that I experienced. And I'm not minimizing those things, and I'm not minimizing what you went through. But what I'm saying is, you're going to have to identify with something that gives you strength and gives you power, that gives you the courage to move forward. And for me, that's Christ. That's reading my Bible. That is getting myself into therapy, right? Identifying with a more powerful, a more informed Adelaide, getting coaching. I am a coach. I get coached. It's a big deal. It's important to me. Exercising. I was exercising earlier with my son. I joked about putting on some pounds, but I'm being intentional about being healthy, not just about losing weight, about being healthy so I can be around for a while. But the only way I can do all of this stuff is because my identity has changed from the inside out and is constantly transforming. But I have to be willing, you have to be willing to let go of just what you see here. Like I gave that example about the bathroom and the stain. Like a lot of times we can't transform because we're just focusing on what's in front of us instead of listening to our heart, listening to our soul, listening to our body. There are some people that come around you that when they walk in the room, your body will react to them. You tense up, you get upset, you get frustrated. That's an identity that needs to be shifted. Because whatever you're identifying with in that season needs to be shifted so that that person or that situation cannot change you. That thing has control over you. And if something has control over you, then that's not your identity. It's that thing working through you. So you letting your trauma control your life. You letting every mistake you ever made in your past control your life. You're letting what people think about you, the opinions of other people, control your life, because that's where your identity lies. You're going to have to feed yourself something different. A lot of times we think about feeding and eating when we think about our mouth and we think about food. But what I'm saying is, you're going to have to start seeing things differently. You're going to have to start listening to different things. And for some of us, you're going to have to start physically eating different things too. If you're going to experience authentic transformation in your life, let me tell y'all something. Time is going faster. You can play with it if you want to. Time is going by faster. Things are speeding up. The world as we know it, we've all made it through a pandemic. Look at God. Look at the millions of people that died. due to COVID-19 and complications of it, and some of the other impacts and ripple effects of it. Could have been political, social unrest, famine, war. But you are still here. And at some point in time, you're going to have to start making excuses for staying stuck. Well, I've been trying, but you know what? Man, you just don't know what I've been through, man. I just can't. I just don't never have the money. I don't make enough money. Or, I can't do that because this person need me or that person need me. Let me tell you something. God put you here. Like, I had to learn this. It's in the scripture. We were created to worship God. I'm paraphrasing, but we were created to bring honor and glory to God. That's your ultimate identity. That's the ultimate reason why you were put here. But the way that you were called to do that is unique to you, unique to me. Now, what we have to do is be very intentional and be very serious about bringing what is unique to us out to the world. Like, Heal With Me is unique to me. I don't need to worry about how anybody else is doing it. I just need to do what God is telling me. I need to show up where God is telling me to show up. Do it on Zoom, put it in on YouTube. Make sure you show up on Monday nights until I give you more instruction. This is what we're going to do. But this is unique to me. I don't need to worry about trying to be like somebody else. Has that happened before? Absolutely. That's why I have to remember where my identity is, what my identity is rooted in. And I agree, just going from the comments in Zoom, God gave all of us a purpose, but what are you doing with yours? And this is for everybody. And I can guarantee you, those that are not fulfilling, like really, truly fulfilling the call, like a lot of us can critique other people. We can look at them and say, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. But you know what I have learned? That's a mirror. Usually when you can see a change or upgrade that somebody else can do, it's because God is trying to get that information through to you about a situation in your life, but you might not be willing to see it. It's what Matthew chapter 7 is talking about when we want to talk about the speck in somebody else's eye when we have a log in our own. Am I saying that we can't correct and challenge other people? No, I'm not. But I am saying that a lot of times the issues that we see in other people are just trying to shine a light on blind spots that we need to work on for ourselves. If you've ever been around a loved one or a coworker and you could look at them and say, that person is not living to their fullest potential. That person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I could see them doing this and I could see them doing that. And I want you to just think about how you could turn that mirror on yourself. What could you see yourself doing? What could you see yourself be? Who could you see yourself being? Because the problem is we are so focused on what should I be doing versus focusing on who should I be. Because if you focus on who you should be, your identity, then the doing part will be easy. A lot of us are out of line. A lot of us are out of place. That's why a lot of our relationships aren't happy and fulfilling the way we would like them to be. We have a lot of expectations of other people. But what I'm saying is identify who you are. Get to know yourself. Get to know yourself. Get to know your triggers. The last week or so, I've been talking a lot about triggers. I've been paying attention to mine. What's triggering me? What's causing me to fall back? What's causing me to not continuously transform? What's delaying my transformation? I don't believe we're stopping it, but I believe that there are some things that you need to do so that you can experience the breakthrough in your life that God has called you to experience. Authentic transformation, where you could be yourself, where you don't feel like you have to change when you go in this environment and do this thing. I had a conversation today, and I said, I made a comment and said, well, this is how I am. So if we're gonna be in close relationship with each other, then you need to know that this is how I am, this is how I do things. So if there's ever a need for a conversation about it, we can. But I'm jokey. I like to crack jokes, and I also like to laugh at things. Um, laugh. I just like to laugh. I also laugh at myself, and I tease myself. And my friends and those close to me, like we do that for each other. So I feel like, yes, there are things I can polish up and things that I can work on. But I also feel like that's a part of me being me. And for a long time in my life, I felt like I couldn't be like that with everyone because everybody can't handle that. Everybody can't, deal with me being like that. But now it's like, no, this is who I am. I feel good when I'm like this. I feel good when I can laugh and joke and be witty and make somebody else laugh or giggle at whatever time. I mean, that makes me feel good. Now, if it doesn't make you laugh or giggle, I'm not trying to offend you, but I also am not trying to walk on eggshells. I don't identify as a people pleaser the way I used to. I'm not making pleasing other people my primary concern. Now, do I want to disrespect others or be insensitive and not be empathetic? No. And when I'm being like that, I need to deal with it right then. But I also realize that a part of growth and a part of getting to know who I am so that I can be, not just do, because the doing is a product of the being. See, when I identified as, abandoned and less than and broke and not smart enough, not good enough, not educated enough, then that was the being, right? That was the belief system. So that belief system brought about certain behavior. So I was trying to be a lawyer, and then I was trying to be a nurse, and then I was trying to be a licensed social worker. Here again, these are amazing careers, but that wasn't what God was calling me to. Now, when I started to work on myself, do the hard work that I talk about, when I started to heal, when I started to humble myself and be honest, when I started to um, engage enlightenment, right? When I started to be accountable to authenticity, when I started to do all of that in love, then my career path started to change. When I started to be more, then my doing shifted versus me doing, which is what I was doing, and my being was starving. My identity was jacked up. Now I know that this type of talk and conversation really rocks your identity at the core. It really forces you to go back to what happened. Hello, son. How are you?
I'm good.
I don't worry about that.
Okay, I got
Don't
you.
worry. I see you play. I'll talk to you in a minute. Excuse me, y'all. My big boy, my young man, just came home and he was telling me hi. Um, okay, what was I saying? It'll come back to me. But so our identity, talking about our identity, it'll come back to me. So what we have to do is, it'll, whatever I was saying, it'll come back to me. And if y'all remember, please put in the comments and I'll go back to that. But our being, I was talking about being versus doing. And I know for some people, like this is a lot because this is going to rock who you are to the core. This is going to force you to look back at things that happened in preschool. If your parents are alive, you might have to ask your mother, what was going on when you were pregnant with me? Like, what was the climate? What was your mood? What were your emotions like? Like, you may really need to pray and ask God to guide you. As I started doing heart work, as I really started undergoing this divine heart transplant process that I teach and guide our Heartcubators through, I started to identify that a lot of the issues that I was dealing with in my life weren't just my issues. And I feel like God used my relationship with my grandmother to highlight things in my life that I needed to work on and change, that I was no longer to identify motherhood with just synonymously doing everything that I saw her do, but being able to challenge some of those things and say, was that really the best? Or is that really the best thing for my family? And just being able to do that was a big deal, because I felt like if I went against anything my grandmother said or did, it was like I was being disrespectful. I didn't want to disrespect her. I didn't want to disrespect her name and dishonor her in any way. But I will never forget, and I don't want to sound crazy, y'all. Not, and I don't want to use that term lightly. I don't want you to think that something's wrong with me. But I will never forget the day I was praying and I was meditating and I was talking to God, and I felt like I bumped up against a belief that I knew this was something my grandmother did. It was dealing with marriage, and I was praying about something with me and my husband, and I just remember like journaling and just kind of crying out, and I felt like I didn't need to do what grandma did. Right? I just felt that it was like, don't do with your husband what grandma did with hers, whatever that situation was, or don't do with your kids. And I felt like I was doing something wrong when it came to her. And I remember it was like I heard a voice say, no, I didn't always get it right. You don't always have to do what I did. And it was like my eyes, it was like I had a like scales over my eyes, like a scale over my heart. It was like my heart was hard. And when I heard that, it's like something like peeled away, because it was a situation where I realized that, you know, it was time for me to do something different. And I know a lot of people talk about breaking generational curses and doing something different and making shifts. And what I'm saying is, a lot of times breaking these generational curses aren't just about, going to college and getting a degree. It's about having a better attitude. It's about parenting a little differently. It's about pursuing your marriage or your career or the calling on your life in a way that you've never seen before. And it might go against what people who raised you or the people who were in your culture thought that was the right thing to do. And I'm not just saying going off some exciting feeling that you just woke up with one day. I'm talking about getting serious about connecting with God and asking, why am I here? And lead and guide me. But in order to figure out why you're here, you have to be okay with being. And if you're going to be, your identity has to be locked in with Christ. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It does not mean that you get everything right. But when your identity is locked in with Christ, what you're saying is, I know that I'm living my life by these standards. These are the things that I need to be doing. This is what I need to say about myself. So if I'm ever feeling like, oh, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, that's too hard for me, I don't have enough money, what does Christ say about this? What does Christ say about me in this situation? Well, I don't go to church like that, I don't read my Bible. Start. If you have a cell phone, then you can develop a relationship. And I just want to encourage you. It's time to shift your identity. It's time to do something new. It's time to do something different. It's time to stop comparing yourself to everybody else. It's time to stop trying to assimilate in a certain environment, a certain culture, trying to be like a certain kind of people or do a certain kind of thing. What did God call you to do? That's where your identity is. That's what's delaying your transformation, because you're not trying to do that. You're trying to follow what's trending. You're trying to see what happened last night on CNN, or whatever the case may be. Checking your local news station every day to see what's happening. What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your soul? Whose name do you see and you get upset? What happens? What do you do in your life that gets you excited and exhilarated? These are the things you need to start to pay attention to and make the necessary adjustments. It's important. I want to encourage you to get very intentional about getting to know yourself. I want to encourage you to get very intentional about figuring out what God has called you here to do, what God has called you here to bring about. For too long, I was too worried about everything else versus just let me just focus on what God called me to do. I don't need to do this like somebody else, but God, how do you want me to do this? How do you want me to show up? This is what I'm encouraging you to do. And if you need help or support with that, I want to help you. The Heartcubator is an online course that's self-paced and it's designed to take you from stuck to unstoppable in life and business. I know you're frustrated. I know this whole talk about identity. You probably have a business idea or a book you need to publish. You probably want to start some type of ministry in your community, or you want to give back in some kind of way. You just don't know how to start. Or maybe you have started, but you got stuck. You got frustrated. Maybe you don't feel like you adding up with those that you see other people, the other people that you see are doing what you're doing, right? Maybe you feel like, well, I didn't get that degree, or I never got to buy that house, or I don't know if I could do this thing. I'm telling you, you can do it. And the Heartcubator is designed to help you do just that. Get clear about your business ideas and learn what to do every day. Confront and debunk the issues that are causing you to play small. All these things causing you to play stuck. This identity that's not aligned with what God has called you to. You're really working on building your spiritual fortitude and getting clear on what God says about you so that you can carry that out into your life and into the marketplace, doing the work that God has called you to do. And then you're going to learn how to publish or write your next book. Or maybe you don't want to write a book, but you want to teach something. You have a workshop. You have something you want to share with the world, and you want to know how to package that and share it with others. I can help you do that in the Heartcubator. And also learn how to use social media to benefit you. Many of us get online every day. We check our Instagram, our Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat. Somewhere I found you there. But how is that benefiting you? You're benefiting others, but how is that benefiting you and the calling on your life and your mission? And I want to help you with that. I want to support you in that. You've been trying to figure this out for long enough on your own. It's time for you to get in a community and have guidance so that you can literally take your life from stuck to unstoppable, and the Heartcubator can help you do just that. You can go to the website, theheartconnections.com. You can register there. If you like to talk to me, I love to talk to you. I love doing Heal With Me. If you ever want to get on and do a heart session and find out how I can support you in the Heartcubator or in other ways, don't hesitate to connect with me. Get on my calendar. Let's chat. But it is time for you to transform your life. It is time for you to get unstuck. It's time for you to shift your identity. You cannot do so much to be. You will never be perfect enough to feel good enough. It won't happen. You cannot feed that appetite. You have to get comfortable being who you were created to be so that you can do all that God has called you to do. Because y'all mark my words, everybody here, those that are checking us out on the replay, just know that those that are tuned in, what we're doing right now, things are about to shift. We made it through the pandemic for a reason. You got to get clear on who you are because it's time for you to step into who God has called you to be. God has called you more than a conqueror. He has called you to be successful. He has called you to have breakthrough. He has called you to be the head and not the tail. He has called you to be above and not below. But you have to know that and you have to believe that. And if you have questions about what that means, keep sticking around. Trust me, you're going to learn a lot more. If you really want to know right now and you want to like really jumpstart your life, into the Heartcubator. I can promise you, you're going to see transformation. Well, I thank you for being here. And I really want you to think about, how are you identifying yourself? Who are you? We do this exercise in the Heartcubator that takes you through these series of questions about what you believe about yourself. And it's very transformational. It really is very deep, because a lot of times you do not realize what you think about yourself until you stop and take the time to think about it and process it. So I encourage you, this is your homework for the week. Let me know. Inbox me, come in our group, the Heart Tribe. Let me know. Comment, send me an inbox. But let me know, how did it go? What did you come up with? Who are you? I thank y'all for being here. Do we have any comments or questions? Any comments or questions before we close out? I thank you guys so much for being on here. We are on Heal With Me every Monday night at 8 p.m. on Heal With Me TV. We're also live on Zoom, where you can log into Zoom if Zoom is easier for you. And we also have a phone number that you can call in. I know when we did Heart Talk, I had quite a few mothers and grandmothers that used to call who were not on the internet at all, but they knew how to dial a number, they knew how to put the access code in, and they would get on the call. So if you have an auntie or a grandmother or a neighbor down the street that you think could use some encouragement, some uplifting, share with her. If you have a husband or a brother or an uncle that you think could benefit from this uplifting, share with them, because this is a live support group. This is time for us to come together. I always want to hear from you. I share from topics that I get throughout the week. Typically, whatever I'm talking about is something that someone has presented to me throughout the week, some type of topic or some type of situation. If you have a topic, if you want to talk about something dealing with relationships, dealing with real estate, dealing with healing, and what that means, I would love to talk about that. Mental wellness, emotional wellness, these are things that I love. If you want to talk about business strategies, let me know, because Heal With Me is a live support group, and we are all here doing this together. We are at different places around the world, but we can find ourselves in this one um, community, this one space together right now. And there is strength in numbers. And I just want to let you know that you're important. And I just want to let you know that you matter. And remember, if you heal your heart, you transform your life. And we do this every Monday night at 8 p.m. on Heal With Me TV, live on YouTube. So I thank you all for being here. I will be back next week. Remember to share your comments and questions. You can put it in the comments here, or you can message me. Go to the website, theheartconnections.com. And if you want to get on my calendar and let's chat privately about how I can support you, remember you can go to my website, theheartconnections.com, and get on the calendar there. I love y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll be back next week at 8 p.m.